everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I wanted to do this because Spirit has really been working with me lately on the topic of self-identity. How I look at myself, how I perceive myself. And I thought, I can't be the only one going through this. There has to be other people who are on this same ascension journey that are struggling with similar issues. So I thought I'd share some of my experiences and hopefully be a source of encouragement to those who are undergoing similar struggles. This morning during my personal time when I was doing a reading, I was reminded that self-identity, the way in which we perceive ourselves, is actually a hindrance to ascension. Our self-identity is formed with a bunch of barriers, belief systems, ideas about who and what we are. And more often than not, those form barriers to transitioning to the higher frequency that we're striving for. The means by which we loosen those limitations and barriers are going to be different for all of us. Not everything's going to work for everybody. I personally like to do meditation, affirmations, and I have a couple books that I like to read because they are particularly elevating for me. But that may not be the same process that is viable for you. You have to find what works for you and do that. That's one of the difficulties and one of the joys of what we're undergoing as we're transitioning to the next phase of our existence is we have to all find our own path. One of the things that Spirit showed me in a vision was that each of us have a ladder to ascension. And as we're climbing the ladder, the rungs underneath us disappear. The reason for that is that so no one else will try and climb up on our ladder. That's a pretty powerful illustration and a pretty powerful example of just how individual our spiritual journey is. Nobody can climb up anybody else's ladder. You can climb alongside somebody else, but it's still going to be your own ladder. We can use one another for encouragement and uplifting as we're climbing. But once again, it's our own ladder. It's not anybody else's. That's one of the reasons we have to be so careful about judging and criticizing how people are choosing to ascend in their spiritual walk. It's just so incredibly individual. It's because we are all source in expression. We are all forms and shapes that the source itself is using to experience itself. Why would it want to do the same thing over and over and over again? That makes no sense. Just like we wouldn't do the same mathematical problem over and over and over again. Well, we know 2 + 2 is 4, so why would we keep repeating it? We wouldn't. So we would do other math problems, 2 + 3, 2 + 6, 2 + 7, 2 + 8, ad infinitum. And that's the same way it is with each of us. We are like a mathematical problem per se, where each one of us are adding different things together. And that's what makes the mathematics intriguing for Source. Cloning and repeating the same thing over and over again is boring. It's uninteresting, and Source is nothing if not curious. We are one of the means by which Source satisfies its curiosity. So here we are, each struggling to figure out how to be that mathematical problem that arrives at its intended destination. And I even suspect that our intended destination isn't always the same either. We're always talking about ascension and transformation and metamorphosis, but I suspect that that is even different for each of us. What I am striving to achieve in my own spiritual walk is a form of metamorphosis that transcends anything that I've heard other people discuss. And at first, I didn't understand that. But then I began to recognize it makes sense, because if my ladder disappears underneath me as I am ascending, then doesn't it make sense that as we're climbing the ladder, each one of us will stop at different rungs on the ladder? We may even get off our ladder and take another ladder when we reach the next rung. I don't know. I can't tell you that's how it is, but I also can't tell you that's how it isn't. So it's up to you to decide. One thing I do know for certain, I am absolutely convinced of this, is that regardless of how far we go up the ladder, we need to accept ourselves as we are, where we are, with what we're doing. It doesn't mean we need to stay still. It doesn't mean we have to stay the same. It just means learning how to love oneself unconditionally, I believe, is an essential component to the ascension process. And boy, is that hard. If there's one thing we're really good at, is criticizing ourselves, seeing all our flaws, constantly pointing to other people and saying, see, look what they're doing. Why can't I be doing that? Why am I doing this when they're doing that? Shouldn't I be able to do this? I've dealt with that quite a bit. But that's also part of that self-identity that we need to detach from. As long as we cling to our version of self that we've been forming for the last 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of our life, then that's what the future holds for us as well. To make room for the new, we have to let go of the old. And the biggest piece of letting go of the old is releasing our self-identity. No longer focusing on our past, the things that formed us, no longer focusing on our gender, our relationships, our occupations, our abilities or lack thereof. No longer saying I can and I can't, but recognizing that all things are possible because we are consciousness in form. And just as the consciousness is fluid, so are we. We can change. We can infinitely change and adapt because consciousness infinitely changes and adapts. The only thing stopping us is our belief in what we are. As long as we think that we are the person born to this family or that, defined by this or that situation, as smart as this or that allows us to be, as economically blessed as we are or are not, belonging to this or that nation, possessing this or that ability or handicap. As long as we're constantly defining ourselves, then we are still bound by self-identity. The key to releasing your identity is to stop defining yourself. You may have incarnated into this or that family. You may have experienced this or that limitation or trauma. You may have engaged in this or that educational exercise. You may have practiced at this or that job and occupation. You may believe that you were defined by this or that situation or environmental condition or nation or language or culture or race. That was just beliefs. And beliefs can change and do change all the time. When you detach from your beliefs, it's not the same as detaching from your family, your job, your country, or anything else. But what changes is your relationship to those things. You're no longer bound to those things. You love, you work, you walk. You do so many of the same things. But those things no longer define who you are. They're just an aspect of the life that you are living right now, here in this place. You are not your occupation. You are not your family. You are not your sex. Your spirit, You are consciousness in form, living out an existence in that form. But you're not that form. It's a huge distinction. And that's part of detaching from the world. It's inherent in the idea being in the world, but not of it. All the things you experience, all the relationships you have, those are designed to enhance your learning at a spirit level. They were never meant to define or cage you into an identity. Those are very different things. So as I continue my own ascension journey, I just want to offer you this encouragement. Discover who you are apart from the labels and the definitions and the belief systems that you've applied to yourself for so long. Get rid of the words I can and I can't. Get rid of the words that I am this and I am that. Get rid of all the vocabulary and beliefs that define you and distinguish you as something separate and different from everyone else. Because you are not. You are consciousness in form, and that consciousness belongs to Source, and that consciousness makes us all one. I am you, you are me, we are one. It's really hard in our individualistic society to think of ourselves as a group one, but that's what we are. Think about the sun and the sky. When we talk about the rays of the sun, do we say this ray is Jamie, this ray is Jonathan, this ray is Catherine? No. We say these are the rays of the sun because they all emanate from the same source. They are all here to carry out the will and intention of that source. That's what we are. So be what you are. Be a ray of the sun. Be a ray emanating from Source. When you recognize that's what you are, then all these attachments just naturally fall away, because what can cling to consciousness except that which is permitted to cling to consciousness? You can remove it, you can let it go, and be the true mind, the high mind, the purified mind that is allowed to experience the higher vibration and the higher reality that is our true form. Thanks for taking a few minutes to listen, and I hope these words have been beneficial for your walk. Blessings on your journey, everyone.